If you're a parent trying to help your child succeed in school, what I'm about to tell you should concern you deeply. The movement to completely dismantle the U.S. Department of Education has already begun, and it could change everything about how your child learns and who gets left behind. The workforce of the Department of Education has been cut by 50% since January. The massive staff reductions have eliminated all or nearly all of the employees in certain offices, rendering them non-functional. Some politicians and activists want to eliminate the federal government's role in education, sending power entirely back to the states. And that may sound like local control, but in reality, it opens the door to a patchwork system where your child's education depends entirely on their zip code, your governor, and your state's funding priorities. So let's dive in. So let's get some clarity on what the DOE does. The Department of Education has lots of responsibilities, including federal student aid for college students, educational research for best teaching practices, the Office of Civil Rights, which is mostly made up of lawyers who try to prevent or remedy discrimination against students, and the Office of Special Education Services, which serves students with disabilities. The department also provides funding for public K-12 education, including Title I, which funds schools or districts with a high population of low-income families. Okay, so fully staffed, there were about 4,200 employees of the DOE, which is now down to just about 2,100 staff members. And here's what that could mean for you and your kids. First, federal protections for students with disabilities, gone. Civil rights enforcement to prevent all forms of discrimination against students, gone. National programs that help kids in low-income communities access reading support, meals, and after-school programs, gone, or drastically reduced. Families that live in well-funded districts might not feel it right away, but families in rural, urban, or under-resourced communities will definitely feel it first. So you need to ask yourself if parents like you or kids like yours could be the ones left without the support they need. The layoffs will also cripple the agency responsible for managing federal student loan portfolios, as well as all the IT specialists who maintain their online presence, including cybersecurity compliance. That means if your child is anywhere in the process of applying for college or student loans, it's about to be more of a nightmare than it already is. The aspect of the DOE staff reductions that will likely have the biggest impact on K-12 students is the funding. The Department of Education administers two large, decades-old funding streams to schools to help educate the nation's most vulnerable students. Those living in poverty, which, as I mentioned before, are Title I funds, and children with disabilities, which is covered by the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or the IDEA. Both of these funding streams are created by Congress and they're protected by law. So while the layoffs don't directly affect those federal dollars, the department's Office of General Counsel says that the administration has conveniently fired every lawyer that is responsible for helping the states and school districts understand how they can and cannot use their federal dollars. And who raises red flags when a state or a district appears to be in violation of these funding laws? In other words, states can continue to receive federal funds, including monies for homeless students in rural schools, but most of the lawyers who offered either legal guidance or put the guardrails in place that guaranteed the money is being used to help the children that it was intended to help were fired. So, will there still be accountability? Maybe, maybe not. But all I know is that when I was an academic coach, I was in charge of the budget, and I was constantly reminded that we couldn't mix those funds or make purchases out of the wrong funding source. I always heard, you don't want to go to Title I jail. You don't want to go to Title I jail. I mean, there are people that will purposely misappropriate funds. But even if you're not sure of what can or can't be done with those funds, there were those phone numbers that we could call to be advised on what to do. Years ago, a principal in my district was fired because she used Title I funds to pay for the book fair with the intention of putting the money back when the general funds were released. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but the issue is that Title I funds cannot be used for anything that the whole school is going to use because it's strictly earmarked for low-income students. And something like a book fair is for the entire school population. So general funds have to be used for that. Even though that sounds like a small thing, those agencies were diligent about making sure that the money was spent on the students who needed it. With less staff or eliminating the DOE altogether, who has oversight? It's going to be up to each state to police itself and do what seems right in their own eyes. So, what can you do? First off, you can stay informed. You need to understand the policies and proposals that impact your family. Next, you should ask questions at every level: school board, district, and state representatives. And you should also keep watching Parents for Literacy because I will be bringing you all the things that you need to be thinking about. I'll break it down and I'll give you the tools to advocate for your family. Listen, we can't afford to be silent when our children's futures are being debated behind closed doors. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up, share it with another parent, and if you haven't already, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of the important information that I share. Leave a comment and share what you think. Share your thoughts about what's happening in the DOE, and let's speak up. Let's stay awake. Let's fight for literacy, equity, and opportunity. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.